Hello, everyone. For this week's discussion, I will talk about the reality therapy and rational emotive behavior therapy as it pertains to the case of the Millers, in this case, Marcus, which is found at the end of chapter 11 in our textbook. Okay, so the first question is, what techniques do I think are important in building a relationship with Marcus while helping him to understand the basic tenets of reality therapy? There are a few techniques within the tonic of the helping relationship that Newkrug mentions that are important to use while building a relationship with Marcus and helping him understand the basic tenets of reality therapy. I would use humor. For starters, I like using humor in everyday life anyways. It makes me feel better. It makes others feel better. But I would use humor in building a relationship with Marcus as long as the humor is appropriate to the topic of the session. So an example that I found, can't remember if it was in the textbook or one of the websites I found, one of the sources I found, one of my other sources. So if you're talking about somebody passing away, I probably wouldn't use humor in that aspect. So, but making somebody laugh goes a long way in building relationship, even if it is counselor-client relationship. Okay, so I would also use established boundaries, the off-limit topics to not talk about, mention them. Since I have a Christian worldview, having those boundaries with one that does not have the same worldview is, in my opinion, a good thing. Of course, suspending judgment is also a big deal because clients come in for help, not for criticism or getting judged. So in this case, Marcus would probably, he probably would already have several criticisms and judgments from the outside world that he does not want to come in. So, and then according to the Glasser Institute, it is also important to explain the concept of total behavior, which means to focus on what the person can do directly, act and think. In addition, they also mention to teach that it is not okay to make excuses, whether they are legit or not. Making excuses actually gets in the way of making connections and real change. So making excuses, I've been working on not making excuses because it doesn't help at all. There's a saying that I remember. It's the saying is that you can only control your own actions and attitudes, pretty much behavior, what the Glasser Institute said. So let's move on to the second question. If I were to continue as Marcus's reality therapist, how might I use the WDEP system to support him in exploring and creating a plan to strengthen his relationships? So if I were to continue as Marcus's therapist and use the WDEP system, I would not necessarily go in order of how he learned and what it says in the textbook. I think I would use the WDEP system in a way that helps Marcus discover what he wants most and helps him make the most sense as well. So in terms of building relationships, I would go with his desire, what his goals, what he wants, what his wants are in terms of building a relationship or strengthening his relationship, like with his sister. So get the wants, and then going into making a specific workable plan to how to build that relationship to make it stronger. because without a plan, most people don't execute on the work of that plan and never actually follow through with what they want. I would then have I will then have Marcus, go and execute, and I will see if he's executing that plan. Okay, and then after that, I will have Marcus self-evaluate himself and how that's coming along. So, but at the same time, I will make sure that Marcus knows that excuses do not count. So, as well as with the WDEP plan system, Webboating, an interview I found, Webboating mentions that the four parts of this system interlock, and that he suggests that the therapist doesn't actually go in order, but that they go in an order that meets where the clients are at. So, let's move on to the third question. What multicultural issues does Marcus's counselor need to attend to? And there are a few things that I believe Marcus as a counselor needs to attend to regarding some multicultural issues. For starters, Marcus is adopted to a white Nigerian couple, so he's adopted to a multiracial couple. Sorry, and another part that he's homosexual, living with his partner. Back in those days, where this therapy was founded, the being homosexual and living with his partner probably was frowned upon. So that definitely didn't help with the issues. Also, being adopted can cause certain issues with parents and siblings, and can often make someone feel insignificant and unimportant. In the same interview with Webboating that I found, as I mentioned earlier, Webboating mentions that this I'm going to mention is the main thing that is not considered a multicultural or diversity issue, and that is that everybody chooses their own behavior and cannot blame someone else for it. Like I mentioned before, that everyone has only the only. Let me say that again. The only thing you can control is your own actions and attitudes. No one can control it for you but yourself. So also with that, Marcus's counselor may also need to switch up some of his wording based off of Marcus being adopted as well as living with his partner. And I believe that Marcus living with his partner probably makes Marcus feel like he belongs and feels loved. And then, like I said before, there are often times where adopted children feel out of place, like, they're not loved because they're different. Okay. Let's go on to the last question as I wrap up my time. So it says, if I'm applying rational emotive behavior therapy with Marcus instead of reality therapy, what would be two major differences in the delivery of the counseling? So if I were to apply rational emotive behavior therapy, REBT, with Marcus instead of reality therapy, one of the biggest differences in delivering counseling would be to use Socrative dialogue, which, described by Newkrug, is a method that helps clients to finding and seeing how their thinking is illogical, and in the end leads to negative emotions and behaviors, whereas reality therapy would avoid such things. Another big difference I would have to change up from using reality therapy to REBT is to use cognitive disputations, which according to Newkrug is helping clients challenge their irrational beliefs, which in the end should help the client, or in this case, Marcus, to change his thought and behavior patterns to be more positive thought and behavior patterns instead of negatives. The goal of this would be to have Marcus be able to challenge his own irrational beliefs on his own, so that he would no longer need my help. Lastly, according to the Albert Ellis Institute, Rational Emotive Behavior Therapy, REBT, helps individuals to develop a philosophy and approach to living that can increase their effectiveness with the satisfaction of at work, in living successfully with others, in parenting, in educational settings, in making our community and environment healthier, and enhancing their own emotional health and personal welfare. Thanks for watching.